cares, and so does the St. Raymond Annatis Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Hi, I'm Anne DeSantis, Executive Director. In 2015, the Mercedarian Friars came together because they wanted to start a foundation to help families in crisis. And that's exactly what we've been doing over these years. Whether it be something to do with divorce, separation, trauma, job loss, loss of a loved one, or other adversities, we've helped so many families get through those tough times through the spiritual works of mercy. We'd love to hear from you. Please do get in touch with us for our services. They are prayer, priestly consultation, podcasts and videos, and programs and events. We look forward to hearing from you. Just go to nonotus.org and get in touch with me. I look forward to hearing from you. God bless.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Anne DeSantis.
Hello and welcome to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network. This is Anne DeSantis back again, and I have an amazing guest for all of you on this Friday evening. I have Keaton Douglas. She is the Executive Director for I THIRST, and during this first half of the show, you're going to learn about her own faith journey. There's so much to discuss. So why don't we first just start out with Keaton. Tell us, what is our I THIRST exactly before we delve into your faith journey?
Certainly. I THIRST is the name of an initiative that has become a mission of the missionary servants of the Most Holy Trinity. That's a community of priests and brothers who are on 2 different continents and 43 different Senegal sites. But they were founded 101 years ago by a Vincentian priest by the name of Father Thomas Augustine Judge. And he had a charism to preserve the faith amongst those who were poor and abandoned. But prophetically, he understood that amongst those who were poor and abandoned were those who were suffering from addictions. So this community has been working in the field of addictions for 101 years, either serving those that are suffering or their family members. I THIRST is something that we created. It's actually an acronym, as well as being the 5th of the last 7 words, utterances of Christ on the cross. But it's an acronym. The word thirst is the healing initiative, recovery, spirituality, and 12 steps. And it is a program of the missionary servants, the 21st century manifestation of Father Judge's very good work dealing with folks. 3 prongs. We work in education and prevention. We work supporting those who are in treatment and who are incarcerated. And we also work in the development of aftercare and community building programs. So it's a big umbrella organization now sponsored by the missionary servants and clearly out of the work of Father Judge. So we're very, very pleased with that.
I'm really honored to host you on this show. I've heard of I THIRST, and of course, I was introduced to you by a common friend.
Right.
And very grateful to her for connecting us, Lindsay. Make a big shout out to Lindsay.
Absolutely.
For connecting us. So with that said, I would love to know, and I'm sure our audience would love to know, your own faith journey and how you got connected with this beautiful organization.
You know, it's an amazing story. I always think that the next book that I write has to be about how God chooses the most random people to do his work. I mean, people that doing work that you would never, ever suspect that you would do in your life. For me, Anne, I was born and raised on Long Island, New York. Grew up as a Catholic, cradle Catholic, went to Catholic University, married my college sweetheart, started a job on Wall Street, all the things that, seemed like they were right. Decided I didn't want to be on Wall Street so much anymore. I wanted to kind of fulfill my passion, which was entertainment. I'm an entertainer. I'm a singer by profession. And really was very blessed with a career over 25 years working with some of the greatest jazz musicians, having opportunities to sing at very, very big functions kind of all over the world. And really making a living as in the arts is not easy. So I was very blessed to that opportunity. I was a young mother doing all this work, and somehow right in the beginning of when my career started to take off, I had experienced the loss of my marriage. Unexpected, unwanted, devastating. And I was a person that became very filled with anger. I was even angry at God. Couldn't figure out how I thought I had done everything right. And now my life was kind of in shatters, you know, and experienced a lot of resentment for many years. I would say I stepped away from the church, and I was able to do that because I think in my journey, I didn't really have an intimate relationship with God. You know, I identified as a Catholic. I knew that's who I was, but I wasn't in love and I wasn't on fire with him. And so I was just basically absent from the faith for a long time because of that. But then God gave me an outstanding moment of forgiveness, which really is a story in and of itself. It's humorous, it's miraculous, it's all those things. So I had a moment of forgiveness where I dumped that burden of unforgiveness that I had carried around for years. It dissipated in literally a moment. And I knew that, it was quite incredible. And I knew that God had done something for me that of and by myself I couldn't have done. And I don't even think that I would have done it, Anne, because I was kind of enjoying being the victim, you know. I lived in that a little bit, to be honest. And but God said to me, that's not who you are. So he gave me a moment of forgiveness, and I dropped the burden of unforgiveness, which was a blessing. And I felt so light, and I started getting called back to the faith in a very profound way. And the way that I got called back to the faith was through Mother and her rosary. And I started praying the rosary, which, you know, I knew about and I had prayed and learned, but I didn't pray the rosary. And I started being called to pray the rosary. So I was like overwhelmed by this, and I would just pray and pray and pray. And finally I said, boy, there is something going on in my life. And people started to say, boy, you are different because you're not angry anymore. You know, your heart is open. You're kinder, you know, and I think that was a blessing, right? So I said, they started asking me to speak, you know, talk about how I had been spiritually healed, how God had healed me. So I would go and I'd speak, and I was like the toast of every communion breakfast and rosary society and how you were healed. It's a lot of fun. It was great. But then something started happening. Because I'm an entertainer, I feel very comfortable in front of an audience. They would say to me, gosh, that was really good. We really enjoyed that. Can you come back next year and talk to us about, you know, the epistle of St. Paul and some of his themes of forgiveness throughout? And I'd be like, I don't think so. I don't think I can talk about that. I only know my witness. That drove me to go back to school. And so I sought my master's of theology at Seton Hall University, where I graduated. And that really opened me. I had the blessing and the privilege of studying with the seminarians from all over the world and other lay people such as myself, who really were falling in love with God and had fallen in love with God and our Lord, and wanted to know everything that we could possibly know. And as that developed, it was the first time back at school in a very long time for me. So I met a young seminarian, came up to me in the second class, and he said to me, boy, you really look like you could use a friend. You know, Anne, who knew that footnotes, there were different kinds of footnotes these days. I mean, the last time I had typed a paper was in like on a Selectric in the basement of you know, the library. And it was just crazy. So he accompanied me, and he was a young man named Brother Aro, became Father Aro, and he was a member of the missionary servants of the Most Holy Trinity. He had invited me to come speak. And the women that I spoke to, I was invited to speak, and I thought, okay, I'm doing this now. Now I'm in theology. You know, I know my stuff a little bit better, and I shared my witness. But I was terrified when he invited me to do that, because the women that he invited me to speak to were 25 women who were suffering from heroin addiction, who were there at the Shrine of St. Joseph in New Jersey as part of a spirituality and 12-step retreat. And he said, they're going to want to hear about your spiritual healing. And I said, well, why did they want to hear from me? To be honest, I've never smoked marijuana once in my life. So like, I was afraid of rejection. And the gentleman that actually ran the retreat, who became my mentor, said to me, do you think that there's nothing that they can learn from you? And I was like, well, I guess there's something, you know. And then he said to me, do you think that there's nothing that you can learn from them? And I was mind blown, because I really hadn't thought that, right? I hadn't thought of that at all.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Right. Oh, it was such a beautiful thing. So I go and I'm terrified of rejection. So I get up there and I start singing, because I figured, well, that's my safety zone. So I sing and they all look up like, okay. And I go through my story, and as I was speaking, I could really get in touch with my emotions. I could cry. And when I cried, they cried. And when I laughed, they laughed. And I can pinpoint that day as the greatest lesson I've ever been taught by human beings. And that was that it doesn't matter what breaks us. We're all broken. It is the commonality of our brokenness that we can sit through, walk with each other in. It is the fact that when we are mutually wounded, we can be mutually healed. And at the end of my talk, we embraced. Not as they were people suffering from addiction and I was not. We were the same. We were broken women who were looking for spiritual healing.
Beautiful story. Wow. What a visual too for our audience to get to know you.
It was an amazing story. I was very blessed and privileged. And I had a funny episode when I left there that day. I was driving and I had a euphoria. I never had it before. I've never had it since. It was just a complete overwhelming euphoria. And it was so almost unnerving that the next morning I went to daily mass and I spoke to my parish priest and I told him all about it. And he said to me, Keaton, I believe you've been called. And I said, Father, I'm in theology school. I know, I've read call narratives. Isaiah gets called, you know, not me. I'm just a singer up in the woods in New Jersey. I don't get called. And he said to me something quite important. He said, Keaton, everyone gets called.
Yeah.
But not everybody listens.
Right. Amen. Oh right? My goodness. Wow.
And then the end was just that I wound up become part of the team and then eventually taking it over, and the rest is history.
The rest is history, but there's a lot more to know. And I'm so glad we got a chance to really communicate. Of course, before we are taping this episode, I had a chance to read over your bio, but admittedly, this is the first time that we have had a conversation. Yeah. So it's also wonderful, not just for our audience, but for me too. And I'm just thankful to you. Now, we do have to take a short break. Sure. And when we come back, we're going to find out a whole lot more about I Thirst and wonderful things that are going on in this ministry. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Journeys in Faith on this Friday evening. Thank you so much for joining us with my wonderful guest, Keaton, thank you so much for joining us and learning, for us to learn about you and about your life, faith, and mission. And during the first half of the show, you told us your story. I know there's always so much more to our stories, isn't there? I mean, it's not always just like a little bit. There's always those in-between stories that tell us so much more, but at least we're getting that basic intro of you, Keaton Douglas, on this show. So tell us more about I Thirst, because I know you've been with them for a little while as the executive director. It's an international organization. Now, is it a nonprofit 501c3 as well?
Sure.
Yes.
Because we're part of the missionary servants. So this is a mission of that core, the priests and brothers, the community of priests and brothers known as the missionary servants. People might be more familiar with them, Anne, as Trinity Missions.
Oh, Trinity Missions, of course. Yes.
Right. So this is one
very
of their,
familiar.
Yep. They've adopted us, I Thirst, as one of their core missions now. So, and it is completely in keeping with what their founder had the foresight to see about those that were suffering from addictions, being amongst those that were poor and abandoned in spirit, certainly. So it is just that we've taken it in the 21st century and really have responded to the needs of what society is really showing us at this point, that there really is a need for us to minister to our brothers and sisters that are suffering from addictions.
I don't want to wait too long before I give that contact information for people to go to the website. What is the actual website and the social media so that they can follow, friend, and like?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So I would love for them to come to our website and meet some of the spiritual companions that are taking our coursework, which I'll explain to you in a little bit. It's www.ithirstinitiative.org. www.ithirstinitiative.org.
Good. And then is it just if they were to put in the search engine I Thirst on, say, Instagram or Facebook, is it there too?
Yes, they would find us there as well.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Trinity Missions. Of course,
Sure.
I get their mass cards all the time. They're always coming in the mail.
And they should, I would welcome people to take a look at their website, trinitymissions.org, because you'll find us there, but you'll see the other outstanding work that they have been doing in all amongst the poorest of the poor all over the world, and really bringing Christ's love and mercy to people who need it so desperately. So yes. I'd love for them to see trinitymissions.org as well and visit us there.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Amen. I mean, it's about making that outreach. And I love how you are, I Thirst, is making that outreach to those who are affected by addiction. So talk about that, because you, in your role as executive director, you get to meet a lot of people. You get to be in front of people that are suffering. And tell us a little bit about what that's like for you and what it's like for them.
Sure, absolutely. I to go back a little bit, to thread it a little bit more completely, I wound up, after that beautiful experience that I had, becoming a regular member of the ministry team. And then my mentors went on sabbatical, retired, et cetera, and I wound up taking over. And I was running, and what that team was really a retreat team here in New Jersey that would serve the needs of those in halfway houses and treatment facilities who would come for these beautiful 12-step and spirituality retreats. And that was basically what we were doing. And I remember going to my mentors and saying, listen, you've taught me that the disease of addiction has devastating mental health and physiological issues that must be addressed. But the hallmarks of the disease of addiction, those feelings of isolation, those feelings of guilt, those feelings of despair, are part of one's spiritual condition. So there must be a spiritual remedy, a spiritual healing, a spiritual dimension of this. It's a spiritual disease with devastating psychological and physiological effects. So if that's the case, and we accept that, what is the systemic response of the church, capital C, to walk with those who are struggling? And today, those numbers are out of the world. You can't even imagine. 40 million persons over the age of 12 are suffering from addictions, active addictions to drug and alcohol at this point. And we think about it, if they have loved ones, if each one of those persons has a loved one, 3 loved ones, there's 120 million people that wake up every day affected either by their own usage or their loved ones' usage by the disease of addiction. That's literally 1 in every 3 persons has this going on. So it's not a niche issue. It's not something that affects others, but it affects all of us in many ways. So I had gone at this point to become a recovery coach because I didn't know what else to do. So I went to recovery coach training in the secular world, and I took 3 hours of coursework, and it was 30 hours, excuse me, of coursework. And it was wonderful, but there was a problem. The problem was that in the coursework, there were 178 pages of curriculum, and I think there were 3 pages regarding spirituality. And yet many of those with whom I took the course were in long-term recovery. And when I spoke to them, I said, what keeps you in sustained recovery? They all said, well, I've had a spiritual kind of awakening. And it was all different kinds, all different faiths and people. Some of them were not affiliated with a particular faith, but they were moved somehow by the Spirit. And it was that movement that kept them sober. So it dawned on me, why are we speaking so little about it? If this is what everybody is attesting to, why isn't the curriculum about that? So I set out to write a curriculum that was spirituality based. So we wrote the I Thirst Spiritual Companionship training. It was academically certified through Seton Hall.
Wonderful.
And, yeah, beautiful partnership with the Catholic University here in New Jersey. And then we're also in partnership with Catholic Extension, which serves our mission dioceses throughout the United States. Those are the dioceses that need subsidy, the poorer dioceses. And we train people continually to go back into their parishes, to go back into reentry programs. So now we have more than 200 people that are trained from Dublin, Ireland, to Pago Pago in American Samoa, and in 24 different states who are working in their parishes, who are working, as I said, in reentry, in correctional facilities, in treatment facilities, in Catholic schools, in Catholic hospitals, providing spiritual consolation and recovery resource information. Our goal was always to empower the church to be a resource for those that were suffering. But an empowered church needs to be informed. It needs to be trained. We need to change hearts so that people understand and we can see the brokenness in our brothers and sisters and recognize our own brokenness and recognize Jesus's face in theirs.
Wow. It makes, hearing all this makes me want to learn more, makes me want to talk to you again.
Yeah, great.
And get more information, because this is wonderful information for our audience. People who are people of faith, people who want to help the church to expand.
That's right.
And we have an audience that's outside of that too. I mean, all kinds of people watch this program, but especially because it is called Journeys in Faith, right? I mean, It is about that journey. And I'm really grateful to you that you shared your own personal journey. And it's a demonstration of how we can all grow too, right? Isn't it? How we can all grow closer to God and to our mission. Because like you said at the beginning of the program, we all have a mission, don't we?
Yes, we do. And
I'm sure that the people that you meet through I Thirst, they have a mission too. And I know you want to communicate that to them, don't you?
I do. I absolutely do. There's a beautiful metaphor that we use. I didn't think of it, and I just absolutely love it. It's regarding the Japanese art form of kintsugi. And it's an art form, for your listeners that may not have heard about it, where there's something of beauty, which is like porcelain, and it breaks. And then there are artisans who put it back together with a golden adhesive. And so the restructured piece, renewed, restored, is more beautiful because of its golden scars than it might have been had it not been shattered. And that's what we look at, our people in recovery who are now making their own journey of transformation. And as they make it, they find their authentic selves and they find a closer relationship with God. So how beautiful their journey is, how beautiful they are now that they are reconstructed in Him, very much like a kintsugi, a piece of artwork. And that's what we see. Some of the people that we work with that are part of our team all over the world are some of the most beautiful, God-loving, on fire with God because of what He's done in their lives. Their post-traumatic growth, if we want to get clinical, has been miraculous, nothing short of it. And now they take that into the world. It's a very, very powerful force.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, I think you would probably agree. One thing I've learned as the executive director for a nonprofit as well that helps families in crisis. It's called the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation. People who
Yes.
are watching the show, you saw the commercial at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And one thing I've learned is that, and even for myself, is healing is not a once and done, is it?
No.
I don't think it is. I don't think it's, I never use the word that much healed, because I think we're always healing.
Yeah,
right. But
absolutely.
the reason is that we continue to live in a sinful world, and we are affected by that. But it doesn't mean that healing, that constant healing, isn't leading us in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Isn't that true?
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree
Yeah.
100%, because it's, as you said, it's not one and done. I mean,
No.
our responsibility as people who are making that journey of transformation, right?
That's
is
right.
to constantly grow in it. I mean, the destination is the kingdom, right?
We're always
So
changing,
always
aren't
alive,
we?
right? Yes.
Yeah, we're always changing. We're always
We're
growing.
always there. Absolutely.
And I think it makes you feel a little bit better when you say, you know what, I might have been healed from things of my past, but I'm still healing.
That's right.
Right? I'm healing every day. I'm healing. In another 10 minutes, I'll be healed again.
That's right.
For something, that,
that encourages
something will happen in my
journey.
life that I'll need to keep getting that healing. So, but
exactly. It encourages that journey, and it keeps us moving. It keeps us moving toward our God. We make that pivot from the abyss, and we start making that beautiful journey of transformation along what we would call the road to hope.
Because it's not a once and done for any of us, right? And when we fall, there's always room for us to keep going, right?
Amen.
And room for us to change and grow and become the people. Really, we don't really become those people until we meet the Lord. I
Amen.
don't think, but isn't that beautiful? Yeah. I just love your faith journey. Now, is there anything that's coming up over this 2023 or even beyond? We're taping this in May of 2023. It's going to air within the next couple of weeks in early June.
Yeah.
Is there something going on this year that you want people to be aware of?
Yes, I would love for them to be aware of the continuing two things that are coming to mind. Three things that are coming to mind. It's always going to be something coming else to mind. One is I want to ask for prayers, because we are beginning another course in our partnership with Catholic Extension. And we are, we're on 6 Native American reservations because of them. We are now going to be working with various mission dioceses, including Anchorage, Alaska, where there's a tremendous need, Boise, Idaho, Spearfish, South Dakota, Memphis, Tennessee. I would pray for those people that are committed through the dioceses to taking our coursework, because they're bringing it back to their communities, which is very important. And some of these communities don't have treatment facilities that are available every other corner, like we might have in Philadelphia or where I am in New Jersey. They are thankful that they can now go to the church as a resource and know that there will be people there that can walk with our brothers and sisters who are struggling, whether they're Catholic or not. We see it as a tool of evangelization. So first, I call for prayers. The second thing I call for is if anyone is interested, our courses are always running. I would be delighted if they would reach out to me personally. I'll get back to you myself through our website, www.ithirstinitiative.org, and express interest in joining our course, coming back and bringing it to your diocese, bringing it back to your parish. As individuals, you're welcome to do that as well. So we have different tracks that we work. So people, the coursework is open, and it's going to be running continually. And the third thing is I am giving a big speech this year at a Center for Addiction and Faith. It's out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in October. And you know what? I am really hopeful and prayerful. I'm one of the speakers at this big conference. It's a marvelous conference. I am one of the only Catholics there. I encourage anyone who is interested in addiction and faith, especially if you're in the Midwest, you don't have too far to travel, to join us out there. It's in October. The Center for Addiction and Faith. You could look them right up on the website and see. I would love more of a Catholic presence. There's so many of us. I'd love for us to get involved, to be out there, to witness, and to support the work that we're doing with I Thirst, and just to see what others ecumenically are doing throughout our nation. It's a very important way. I want our tentacles to kind of grow, as Catholics and as members of I Thirst as well.
Oh, I think it's beautiful. And you and I are going to talk afterwards about any type of collaborative efforts with the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation, which is also from a religious order, the Mercedarian religious order. We were founded in 2015, but that's for another day, because people who watch this show pretty much know all about that piece of who I am and what I do and who I represent. So
Beautiful.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful program. I want to thank you so much for joining us on Journeys in Faith.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Thanks for having me. I love it to have this opportunity. It's a blessing to meet you. It's a blessing to think of collaborations. We'll put Our Lady in charge, and I know she will lead us down the right path.
That's right. So all of you, again, please do check out I Thirst, and we'll see you all here next week on Journeys in Faith with Anne DeSantis on Fiat Ministry Network. See you then.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Anne DeSantis.